Please proceed.
I move, Mr. Speaker, that we recognize the gentleman from Davao del Sur, the Honorable Marc Douglas Cagas, for his interpellation.
The Honorable Cagas has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Majority Leader. Before I begin, may I ask from the DND family whether they have traveled from east to west?
Who?
Very well. From me and other brethren, a pleasant evening to all the travelers in the AFP as well as in DND. Distinguished sponsor, I would not be asking you to compute numbers, but I'm going to ask questions on the budget of the DND so that we'll be able to see where the weakness of the budget of the DND and probably could make amends later on. Would the sponsor be amenable?
Yes, of course, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. It is given, and it's very obvious, Mr. Distinguished Sponsor, that part of the business of DND as well as of the AFP, it necessarily involves danger and risk, probably casualties and death that may happen or that may be caused to our troops. In an eventuality, Mr. Sponsor, that any of our soldier, Marines, or Air Force man gets injured or in combat or in any military operation, has the AFP, do we have any capability as far as evacuating this personnel? For example, elements of the 101st Battalion, for example, operates in Basilan, and 20, let's say 20 Marines were victims of landmines explosion. Does the AFP have the capability of evacuating these wounded soldiers from, let's say, from Basilan, then medevac them to Zamboanga?
Yes. Well, of course, every effort is made to evacuate them, but Mr. Speaker, I'd like to cite my personal observations because I am a reserve Marine officer of the 51st Marine Battalion, and one of the functions that I perform is that when there are Marines killed in the line of duty in Mindanao that comes from my region, I represent the Philippine government in the burial services. And one time, I had to attend 3 funerals in one day. One in Bohol, one in Bantayan, one in the southern part of Cebu. And I asked these questions, and they said, no, there was not enough support, air support or evacuation support. So I think that is a major issue. And in my own personal observation, that the defense establishment seems to be having a policy of deciding that quality is better than quantity. They like to buy twin-engine helicopters, but they can only buy so few of them, and they spend 400 or 500 million pesos each. Or should we have more of the rebuilt Hueys? And this is one of the issues that should be resolved by the military establishment. There is a tendency to go for one nice one instead of many small ones. That's why in the case of this one Marine contingent that was ambushed, they did tell me those that were around, that they had problems in getting air support.
So in other words, simply put, the city sponsor, we have no medevac capability. Is that
No, we have, I believe there is medevac capability, but we are spread so thin that we cannot expect to be everywhere at one time. And this is the problem. Because what if the helicopter is in another province and you have to evacuate somebody who's injured in your province? Then we have a serious situation.
the city sponsor? I'm very happy that in a way you have acknowledged that there is really a lack of capability. I'm bringing this out in the open, the city sponsor, because so that other departments may be made to be aware of this fact. Because if we are to really look at our budget, other departments are getting so much money, which I feel or believe, in fact, I strongly believe that should be allotted to the DND or to DepEd. We can exercise our power of the purse and maybe realign some of the other departments' huge budgets to DND, because it is not only the single sponsor that has experience with this kind of situation. I myself also had experience with with the 39th IB assigned in our province. This representation, upon information by the battalion commander that 4 of the soldiers were landmined, I immediately called for ambulances to be prepared and to wait for the soldiers in the area. Unfortunately, distinguished sponsor, the military operations was made in the mountains. They had to walk several kilometers and for several hours. So much that when the wounded soldiers were finally brought down, they were already dead. So it was very unfortunate. It was a very unfortunate situation, and that's why I pointed out whether or not do we have a medevac capability. And I hope other departments and other sponsors of this year's budget will also feel the concern of ordinary soldiers, because they're the ones going to war. In relation to civil sponsor, as far as medical needs of our AFP personnel are concerned, pila man kabuk hospital diri sa Pilipinas nga ang focus o gidadalhan sa atuang mga sundalo.
We have hospital in all camps and all bases. We have in Biluna, we have in Biluna.
How many
we have in,
hospitals? How many?
Leyte.
I was informed that all the camps and bases have hospitals. Mr. Speaker, I would like...
Are there military hospitals which would readily accept and care for our troops? Ilan ho ba? Because I can name one.
Yes,
Hinintay ko lang po ang sagot niyo, distinguished sponsor.
Well, it is claimed that they have the capability to take care of the troops.
No. I'm asking for hospitals. Meron ba tayong hospitals?
The hospitals, yes, medical facilities.
Meron bang military hospital ng AFP
Yes.
na pwede
Yes.
nating matulungan? At
Yes.
anong hospital ito? Biluna ho ba? O anong?
Viluna
What are
And
these
major
hospitals?
services hospitals.
and the major services have their own hospitals. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to comment first when you say that there is a lack of capability. I mean in terms of equipment, not our soldiers. Our soldiers, I know, are very capable. And I've seen them, I've seen our Marines trained side by side with U.S. Marines, and I think they're better than the U.S. Marines. It's just that we lack the capability, and you said maybe we should appropriate funds to assist and improve the facilities and equipment of the military, particularly for evacuation purposes for those who are injured. I have been trying to suggest that maybe this can be done in coordination with DPWH that can convert many of our highways into emergency airstrips. This is done all over the world. This is done all over Asia, but not in the Philippines. So that in the event you have to supply, you can use light aircraft, which are much cheaper than helicopters. And then maybe in cases like where you had your 4 soldiers who were injured, maybe they would have had the chance to be evacuated quickly.
Mr. Speaker, distinguished sponsor, simple lang ho ang tanong ko. I do not question the capability of our troops. In fact, I am as proud of our troops as ever. Ang tanong ko lang, simple lang, meron ba tayong hospital na mag-aalaga, meron ba tayong military hospitals na mag-aalaga sa ating mga sundalo?
Yes, we have.
Simple lang po yun.
We have Biluna, we have major
Kasi kung
services.
meron,
We
baka
have
kailangan natin matulungan itong mga military hospitals.
Yes, we have more
And what are these
hospitals.
hospitals, if we have?
The major services has their own hospital. The airport.
We have Biluna.
We have Viluna,
We have South Cong.
Southcom,
We have in Davao. All unified commands.
all unified commands have their hospitals.
And under the proposed 682 billion budget of the AFP or the DND, meron ba tayong inalat for Viluna, for Southcom, and for these hospitals?
Yes, we have. Figures natin.
We will get those figures.
Hospital,
Sa Dinex
walang
hospitals.
I have before me the list of hospitals. There are quite a number of them. In NCR, there's more or less 15. Region 4, there's 4. Region 5, 1. Region 6, there's 4. Region 8, there's 2. Region 9, there's 4. Region 10, there's 2. Region 11, there's 2. Region 12, there is 2.
Salamat po kung ganon.
Of the PMA, of the Biluna.
And the budget of Viluna is
Viluna.
The total. 230. 213.
This one, sir, this one. For
malaki.
Viluna is 1 billion.
1 billion.
the budget for Viluna is
1 billion.
1.1 billion pesos.
Yeah, but hospital.
Are you satisfied with that? Would you like a copy of the list?
Yes, another brethren has just approached me to whisper words of good counsel. For the information of the distinguished sponsor, gipangutanan ako kung doon na ba tayong hospital kay this representation katong niaging bulan during the anniversary of the Eastern Mindanao Command. In fact, another brethren went there in lieu of General Oban. He sent General Alcantara. We inaugurated the completion of the East Mincom's hospital. And it was not paid for by the government. It was paid for by members of the craft, by brethren who extend their cable tow to fellow brethren. And that really is my concern, distinguished sponsor. No? Una, mahina na tayo sa medivac. Number 2, if we medivac our troops, kailangan we should be able to send them to hospitals. Hindi lang kailangan sa Viluna, paano kung nangyari sa Yes. ang wishlist ko sana na for AFP and DND, mayroon sanang nakalaan na hospital kada division, no? Yun ang wishlist ko eh. Sana maintindihan mo, Mr. Sponsor, na hindi ko naman inaaway yung AFP. In fact, gusto ko nga magkaroon ng hospital tayo kada division eh, because that's what our soldiers need. I am assuming, Mr. Distinguished Sponsor, that there must be some provision made by the DND for the medical needs of its troops. Meron ho ba? Is it safe for me to assume?
Yes.
Yes, there is, they have a provision for that. I do not know whether it's adequate, but they said they have a provision.
And how much is, Distinguished Sponsor, how much is allocated for medical expenses? My wish list, instead of asking the DND and the AFP so many questions, may I respectfully, Distinguished Sponsor, may I simply enumerate what I want that our DND and AFP to have? May I proceed, Distinguished Sponsor?
Yes, you can proceed.
Thank you.
Mr. Speaker, since they have the figures, we wish to inform the body that 741 million pesos are allocated for medical dental drugs.
Thank you, Distinguished Sponsor. Be that as it may, I will now state my wish list for the DND and for the AFP. Number one, as I've said before, I want for the AFP to have medevac capability for our troops. Number two, I want our military hospitals to have the necessary funding so that it can readily cater to our troops. And for each division, military division, to be catered by at least one hospital each. Number three, yes, and for the troops, when they are in the hospital, after they are medevac, they should be provided with medicines and doctors. Number four, competent doctors. Number four, I would like to see that our troops be given their corresponding pay. Meron kasing hazard pay, combat duty pay. So, meron ding combat incentive pay, merong combat duty pay, merong hazardous duty pay, and whatever incentives due our troops, I would want to see that to be efficiently, no? Ma-fast track. Kunyari may nasugatan na sundalo, sana po yung requirements ay maibigay kaagad sa ating mga sundalo. Next, sa budget po, sa libro, dito sa GAB, na makapal masyado, gusto ko rin po na lisod ng Tagalog eh. Bisayon, pwede Bisayon, sponsor? Sir? Gusto ko matagaag educational benefits, expanded hospitalization benefits, and burial benefits ng ating mga sundalo. Hindi ko na lang po itatanong ito, ha?
Appeal na sa programa, Mr. Speaker, it's all included.
That is precisely my point. We must ensure this is for our troops, it's not for me.
Okay. Yes, it's noted.
Mr. Distinguished Sponsor, Mr. Distinguished Sponsor, I would also want for each division or down to the battalion level to see to it, kasi bago yung leadership natin sa AFP at saka sa DND, na yung budget for battalions, for companies, division, talagang pumupunta or dumadating. I've seen it in practice na minsan walang bigas na dumarating sa batalyon. Mr. Distinguished Sponsor, no? Walang bigas na nahatid sa CAFGU, sa platoon level na na-assign sa bukid. So, in other words, we must fix the average amounts allocated for the functions or operations or for the provisions of a battalion, which is composed roughly from a battalion to a brigade and to a division. A battalion may be composed of as much as 1,200. A brigade from 3,000 to 5,000 personnel, and a division from probably 10 to 50,000 na tao.
Mr. Speaker, provisions are being made when on a case-to-case basis, especially when they are on transit.
Mr. Speaker, the budget for the DND proper under the Office of the Secretary in 2011 had a budget of 310.415. This was increased, which I'm happy, this was increased to 682.815, or an increase amounting to 372.400. 352.500 of this increase will serve as standby funds for the Quick Response Fund. Sunod ba? Sunod
That's
ba?
correct.
Alright. Malipayon ko, distinguished sponsor, kay kaning Quick Response Fund, wala ni siya sa 2011 budget. It is only found in our 2012 proposed budget. And I congratulate the AFP and DND for that. Quick Response Fund. Di ba? Tama ba, distinguished sponsor? Wala ito sa
that's correct.
2011 budget.
Wala sa 2011.
That's good. Thus, the DND has an effective budget allocation of 330.315, or an increase of 19.9. This is my summation. Pasensya na sa pag-total-total ko.
So yan na po mismo ang fax ko.
I'll go now to government arsenal. Government arsenal has been allocated 420.943 for 2011, and they receive an increase of 645.815 for 2012. Again, I'm very happy for that increase. My only question, clarification only from our DND and AFP family, ito bang 224.872 million na increase or 50% increase, ano ho ba ang kasama dito sa when we say government arsenal? Is it simply to maintain, or do we have to, or are we going to purchase new arsenal for our troops?
13 po.
This is only for ammunition.
The province. Ang balik ko Friday morning.
That's only for ammunition.
Ito na. Sana.
Only for ammunition.
Yes. There is 26 million for capital outlay.
Yes, there is 26.367 for capital outlay, and which is 16.367 million higher than the 2011 allocation. Kaya masaya ako, nagka-increase ang DND at saka AFP. Anyway, next, sa Office of Civil Defense.
Nawawala na siya.
Brother, again, I will not ask questions. I'll just go direct to the point.
Yes.
For the information of everybody, as far as my research, or as far as I research, the Office of Civil Defense, in a nutshell, its main function has to do with disaster risk management. Tama? Am I correct?
Yes.
It plans and coordinates for civil defense. This involves crisis management, emergency management, emergency preparedness, contingency planning, emergency services, and civil protection. After review for the budget of civil defense, from an allotted budget of 90.890 million for 2011, the proposal now amounts to 1.221 billion or a 1.130 billion increase. Tama po ba?
That's correct.
Ito ho bang increase na ito is intended po ba ito para to equip our Office of Civil Defense to respond to disasters such as Undoy?
That is all for MOOE. There is no capital outlay. It's used for training and to enhance the capability of the office. $530 is a standby fund as prescribed by law.
Mr. Speaker, may I inquire from the DND family through maybe the secretary through the sponsor? Kasi as DND secretary, automatically siya ang chairman ng National Risk Reduction Council. Tama ho ba?
That's correct.
And, you know, our climate has changed so much. In places where there are supposed to be, traditionally, there are no floods, binabaha na. So, is it safe to assume that representatives or congressmen, pag may nasira, kasi magkano lang ang PDAF ko? Wala pa nga, hindi pa nga dumadating. No? Kunyari, magpatayo tayo ng flood control. Can we tap the chairman of the National Risk Reduction Council? Tap meaning, can we make requests for funding for flood controls?
For funding for
Flood controls.
flood control.
Di ba? National Risk Reduction Council.
Yes, you can.
To be
you can
approved
request.
by probably, yes.
They're working in conjunction with DPWH and DANR.
May I ask, bibilisan ko na lang po para sayang yung oras.
Please, that's okay.
May I ask, bakit ho bumaba ang budget ng Veterans Memorial Hospital compared to that of last year? Ano hong naging basihan bakit binaba yung budget? Bibenta na ba natin yung veterans? Or hindi? Kasi bumaba ho yung budget eh. For 2011, our budget was 820.151. No, ngayon, 2012, 808.868 or a decrease of 11.283. Gusto pong malaman bakit ho nabawasan ng budget ng veterans?
It's a policy of the national government not to fund unfilled positions.
Okay. Yes, it has been reduced, but this is based on the national policy not to fund unfilled positions.
Pardon me?
They
It's
will
based
not
on what?
fund unfilled positions.
No funds for
A
unfilled.
AO 360.
Nasa DBM na yan. Okay. Philippine Army. Services had an increase. Philippine Army, there is also an increase, no? an increase of 1.805 billion. Kasi last year, yung budget ng Philippine Army, 33.588 billion. Ngayong 2012, you are proposing 35.393 billion. Masaya po rin ako sa increase. Hindi ko lang po expound. Ang Air Force, meron din pong increase. Sana,
Mr. Speaker, has to do with the second tranche adjustment. From 33 billion to 35 billion.
sa Air Force, may increase din tayo ng 10, last year, 10.134 billion ang budget for Air Force. Ngayon, sa 2012 budget, 10.550 billion na po ang budget or an increase of 416 million for Air Force.
That's also attributed to the second tranche adjustment.
Well, whatever it is, first trans or second trans, ang gusto ko lang ma-increase. Philippine Navy. Ba, may increase ang Philippine Navy. Baka maka-purchase tayo ng new vessels. Yun ang gusto ni Congressman Subiri na nawawala. Philippine Navy, increase of 2011 budget, 1.354 billion. For 2012, naging 12 billion na ho ang budget ng Philippine Navy. Congratulations, Philippine Navy. Baka maka-purchase na tayo. Commodore Alex Pama, Admiral pala. Congratulations, baka maka-purchase ka na ng karagdagang vessels. And lastly, for General Headquarters, AFP, and AFP-wide services support units, meron tayong increase ng 3.166 billion from last year's 34.691 billion. Ginawa ho nating 37.857 billion. It
Mr.
is
Chairman,
it is the hope of these representations that all of these increases will not later on be slashed, amended, or realigned, because it is but just and fair that we equip our troops with the necessary help, equipments, and whatever assistance we give to our AFP personnel as well as people of the DND. With that, Mr. Speaker, Manong, I end my interpellations on the budget of the Department of National Defense and AFP.
Thank you very much.
Very well. Majority Leader.